Hello, this is Leisha Breen with Journey to Greatness, 365 Days to Your Best Year Yet, and the author of the little book, Extraordinary People Living Ordinary Lives. Break free from the herd and reclaim your greatness because you are great. And today we're going to talk about change. If change was easy, everyone would do it. So how can we make it easier? We can make it easier by layering in change. And what I'd like to say about change is that if we are really wanting to accomplish great things in our life or more in our life, there's going to have to be changes because obviously we're looking at our life as it stands today. Something's not satisfying us to some degree. And that means we have to change some habits, some behaviors, some thought patterns to be able to bring on this new vision that we have in our mind's eye. So we have to get out of our own way because we're our own biggest obstacle. That means we have to do some changing, and change is not easy. There are those out there that will say, you just make a decision to change and that's it. It just happens. Well, I will respectfully disagree because what happens is every time we repeat a behavior, whether it be a thought, an emotion, or an action, it gets wired into your brain. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Neurons being the cells that communicate to one another inside our brains. Well, as those synapses fire off between one another and they wire together, there's literally tracks that are built through those behaviors, thoughts, and emotions, and they can be seen on an MRI. So as we repeat behaviors, we become really good at them, whether they're good for us or not. So be careful what you're repeating. That's why it's so important to become aware of who you are being and then why you're being what you're being. But that's a story for another day. We're talking about change. So if there's things you need to change, then we have to embrace the suck of that because it's not going to be easy. Those patterns have been laid down. That's why it's so hard to break them, because they've been repeated so frequently that they've become part of us. And here's the thing too, if you're older, if you're a more mature person, 40, 50, 60, 70 and up, and that pattern has been something you have been doing all of your life, well, science tells us it takes at a minimum 66 days to change a habit. But for somebody that's been repeating a behavior for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, it's going to take more than 66 days. It's going to take hard work, and it can take up to a year, maybe even a little bit more. But science says between 66 days and a year to change an unwanted behavior that's been going on for a very long time. So if you want to make some changes, if you need to make some changes, I encourage you to do so. But hold on to your hat because it is not going to be easy, and it is not going to happen overnight, and it is not going to happen without challenges. The key to all of this is to not give up. What I do want to suggest is that if you are a more mature individual, and I'm really going to start at the age 35, because at 35 there is science that says that your personality, who you are, is pretty much carved in stone. So you're 35 and up. When I say personality, your behaviors, your regular emotions, your regular thought patterns are pretty much set in stone. That doesn't mean they can't change. They can change, but you have to be aware of them. Then you have to take actions to change them. But if you are 35 and up, the changes are probably going to be more difficult than somebody who's maybe 20, 25, 30 years old. So I highly recommend, and this can be for everyone, but especially for you 35 and up, an accountability partner. It can be a family member, somebody who cares about you, a friend, like I said, it could be a friend, somebody who has your best interest at heart, who will help you while you get over those hurdles. because there will be hurdles, there will be roadblocks, and there will be times that you just want to give up because it's going to feel hard. So do yourself a favor. Grab one of your best friends, your BFF, and say, look, dude, I need some help. I really need some help with this. And I'd like to touch base with you every day until I feel strong enough to be able to say no to this behavior that I no longer want. Now, I want to get into the layering of change, because if you layer it and you've been doing something for a long period of time, you probably will need to take the change in baby steps. And again, change is hard. It's really hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard. And I know you know this. And maybe you've had a habit, like me, for years that you tried to change. And it could be anything. It could be abusing alcohol. It could be a sedentary lifestyle. I run into a lot of people who have a sedentary lifestyle. Smoking, overeating, that was my big problem. I would turn to food to comfort myself. It became a drug for me. It would help me if someone hurt my feelings. I would turn to food and I feel better instantly. It was an amazing drug for me. I could feel better in the second I put something in my mouth. So, and I know that people that smoke, they get a great deal of comfort out of smoking and a great deal of energy. So when I decided to lose weight for the 100th time, it was definitely a struggle, because for at least 15 years, I had given up on maintaining my weight because I hadn't been overweight my entire life. But this habit had settled in as things hadn't gone the way I'd wanted them to in life. And the food just made me feel so much better. So it became an escape for me. And giving that food up became a struggle, first physically and then emotionally. And I did eventually get my eating under control, but it took time and it took a lot of effort and it took an accountability partner. I brought about this change by layering in changes rather than just going cold turkey. I did take it one step at a time. At 55 years old, I was about 90 pounds overweight, and I was working full time, and I was in school part time, and I have a daughter. I had a lot going on, and I felt really overwhelmed because when things would go wrong at work, when things would go wrong in my personal life, I would turn to food, and it was my security blanket. So I also felt that I didn't have time to exercise. I felt I didn't have time to meal prep, meal plan, learn about nutrition, or even get myself out to the gym because I was fairly sedentary. So what I did was I layered in the changes that I needed to make, and I took baby steps. What I did was I first committed to a healthy, nutritious food plan. And I did this one meal at a time. For the first week, I ate a nutritious breakfast all week. Lower calorie, lower carb, nutritious breakfast. And I wasn't worried about the rest of the day. In week 2, I ate a nutritious, low calorie, low carb breakfast and lunch. And then in week 3, I had the good breakfast, the healthy lunch, and then the nutritious, low-carb, low-cal dinner. I didn't have any snacks. So I did this one change at a time. That's layering. And then with exercise, I started out by doing aerobics, just very slight aerobics for 30 minutes in my house. Then I bought a bike and I started riding my bike 30 minutes a day and worked up to an hour a day every morning before I got ready for work. Now I bring weights to work because we're still in COVID, the gyms are not open, and I bring my weights to work before I work out on my breaks, like my 2 10-minute breaks and my half. I'll work with my arm weights. But But before COVID, I was at the gym. So I would go to the gym 3 times a week and lift weights. But this was all done in a layered fashion so that it wasn't so overwhelming. So I didn't feel like I was being hit by a tsunami. And while I was making those changes, those baby steps, I felt that wonderful sense, even though they were very small, even though in week 1, I was just having the one nutritious breakfast. In week 2, it was the nutritious breakfast and lunch. But every time I met that goal, I felt better about myself. I felt a certain amount of accomplishment, and then momentum grew. And I had time to learn. I was learning more and more about what to eat, what not to eat, how to give myself fuel, to get me to get to the gym, to give me the energy to go and work out. One step built upon the other, and then the excitement gave me the inspiration to keep going, so that I lost in about a half a year, about 50 pounds. And it was from taking those baby steps and staying on track, and also meeting up with my accountability partner on a daily basis. And was it perfect? Was it seamless? Absolutely not. There were days, there were weeks where there were stalls, not only in my body, but emotionally there were stalls. There were days that I needed to have a cheat day because I'd be so stressed out. But slowly, I started changing what I was even cheating with. Instead of maybe having a big ice cream sundae, I would go off and have a little pint of Halo ice cream, which would be 300 calories, and I would eat it with a small spoon. So I started making even better choices, to the point where I no longer needed to turn to food to comfort me. Now, one other thing about the emotional element to the eating was that walking became my replacement for binging. If I felt that I had to turn to food and just eat a whole bunch of food because I was just so stressed out, I would take a deep breath, because deep breaths really help. If I could get myself under control, I would meditate. But the best thing that worked for me was getting out and walking, taking a few deep breaths, not being reactive to whatever the situation was that was triggering me to eat, but taking some deep breaths and then stepping out and walking. Walking for at least 15 minutes and 35 minutes if possible. It would shift my focus and get me back on track. So the point to this story is that you need to layer in small changes every day. Look at what it is that you want to change. And if you need to make several changes, find that one thing that you can change, start working on, that's going to make the biggest difference in your life. What's the one thing that you can tackle right now, today? Work on it for a period of time, and know that if you make progress at it, that it's going to affect your entire existence. For me, getting my food plan under control, exercising daily, was going to affect everything in my life. It was my one thing that I needed to focus on at the time. It was my key one thing. So because it was so ingrained in my brain to turn to food to help comfort myself, or to entertain myself, or to just make myself feel better, I had to change this habit one step at a time, one change at a time, so that I could eventually get my arms around it, because I had made it a really difficult problem. And little by little, as you do these things, you will start to see progress that will build momentum. It will inspire you. And once you experience a few small wins, taking bigger steps becomes a whole lot easier, and you won't feel so overwhelmed. I hope I've given you something to think about. Today. If you've got some habits that you need to tackle and change, I hope this will work for you. It definitely worked for me, and I highly, highly recommend an accountability partner. Somebody that's going to gently and lovingly, and maybe sometimes not so lovingly, hold your feet to the fire. Okay, so I hope you guys are ready for our mini mindfulness meditation. If you're making changes in your life, trust me, mindfulness meditation is going to help you get through the rough spots. All right, sit down in a dignified fashion. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose and release through your mouth. And let's get ready. All right, are you sitting up nice and straight with your feet flat on the ground and your hands to your sides, eyes closed? Nice and straight in a dignified fashion. Close your eyes. Today we are going to focus on something in our lives that has made us happy. As we begin, make sure your eyes are closed and take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. We're going to do this 3 times. In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Continue breathing and imagine a time in your life when you felt happy. Try to create the image in your mind right now. Who was there? What was happening? Try to focus on how your body and your mind were feeling at the time. Try to let your body rest as you focus on that happy time. Are you feeling those happy feelings, that joy from that moment in time? Is it raising your vibration? Now take a deep breath in through your nose and release through your mouth. Gently shift your attention to things that can bring you joy today. How will these things bring you joy, and how will that make you feel? Can you feel that feeling of joy? Can you imagine it? Let it just float over you like a beautiful soft wave from your head to your toes. Bask in that joy and bring it through the rest of your day, letting it touch everyone that you come into contact with. When you are finished, take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. So let's do this together. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And now you can slowly open your eyes. Are you feeling that joy in your core? Are you feeling like you can bring that joy through the rest of your day? Well, I want to thank you for being here today. If you, like me, have some changes that you want to make in your life, and if they seem a little overwhelming or a lot overwhelming, try the strategy of layering in change. And I highly recommend an accountability partner, someone who truly is your friend, someone who truly cares for you and will want you to be able to make this change. Not someone that's going to get in your way and make excuses for you to continue with poor behavior, but someone who really wants you to win. Find that person and get a commitment that you'll be able to at least touch base with them for a few minutes, just a few minutes a day, to help you stay on track. And layer in those changes. Sit down and figure out a strategy so you can layer in the changes that you need to make. Now, I hope I've given you something to think about. Be bold, be brave, and always, always be your authentic self.